And he'd go to all the windows and he'd say, open up these windows and let the sun shine in. I used to think he was weird, like, leave me alone. I don't want the sunshine. But I realized, looking back, I was going through depression. A lot of people are going through depression and don't know it. And even God's people have gone through depression. But as soon as we go through it, who should we put our eyes on? We want to lead the eyes of the people to Christ. That's so important. Okay, so improper lifestyle can lead to depression. Do you know that Jesus often addressed people's thoughts? He did this mainly when he was dealing with who? The Pharisees, right? He said, why think ye evil in your hearts? Think ye evil in your hearts, heart, mind connected. He knew the thoughts of man, right? He was trying to address their thoughts. Correct? So Jesus, even in the Bible, confirms that people need to get a hold of their what? Get a hold of their thoughts. And then when you look at the flood, the time of the flood, before the flood came, what does Genesis 6:5 say? Their thoughts were what? Evil continually. You see, and if you read in Patriarchs and Prophets about some of the things they were doing, it was the thoughts that led them to engage in many of those wicked behaviors. So the Bible confirms the importance of us getting a hold of our thoughts. Here's a verse that's so wonderful. This is 2 Corinthians 10:5. I'm sure you guys are familiar with this verse. 2 Corinthians 10 verse 5. We are told, casting down imaginations. What's another word for imaginations? Thoughts.
Thoughts that are not true.
Right. Casting down imagination. Well, you can have a good imagination, like thinking you're going to go do missionary work. You can have a good imagination, imagining the good things. But this is saying casting down imaginations or thoughts and every high thing that exalteth itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ. How do we do that? How do you cast down imaginations and bring every thought to the obedience of Christ? I'll give you practical application. Your friend doesn't call you, okay? And you start telling yourself, she doesn't like me, she doesn't care, I thought we were friends. You know what I'm saying? You haven't talked to her in 3 weeks. And normally you guys talk often. You start thinking immediately, whether it's your spouse doesn't love you, whether it's people hate you, whatever it is, say, Lord, take these thoughts because these are not of you. I'm supposed to think positive thoughts and I need help. Help my unbelief. Take what I'm thinking right now, surrendering it to Him right then and there. Is the thoughts are not the sin, because we're going to be tempted. The temptation is not the sin, it's what we do with it. Are we dwelling on it? Are we having a pity party, poor me, poor me, poor me? And I used to have plenty of those years ago. My friends would tell you when I was in my early 20s, and I was going through a lot. And I am so thankful that I found God. He came in my life perfectly, because I believe I would have probably died from depression. I was severely depressed. Now that I look back, very heartbroken, didn't understand why this happened, why. I understand now. There was an attack against me by the devil. I didn't know that before. Satan saw that God had a plan in my life. I didn't know He had a plan for me. But I'm telling you, learning the Bible and learning about Jesus has saved my life. I honestly believe that from the bottom of my heart. And there are people every day. She said, if we would just go to the doors, you never know who you're going to find. I bet if every single one of us started going into our neighborhood, you don't have to indoctrinate them or give them out. Just go and knock on the door and say, hi, I live in the neighborhood. She said as neighbors, we're supposed to go to our neighborhood. Let them know who we are. Invite them. Find out what their needs are. Befriend them. Become close to them. And then set up a Bible study and invite them over to your home. But how many of us can honestly say we do that? If every one of us did that, do you know how many people we would be bringing in this church? A lot. But we're not doing what we're supposed to. What did the disciples do? They went door to door, right? Yes. And I'm not saying you go there, hi, we're from the church and we want to give Bible studies. A lot of people are going to shut off because they're already in a church or they already believe in God. They need a friend. They need a good word spoken to them. They need their water bill paid, or they need their grass cut, or you know what I'm saying? And we need to go and reach out and find out who these people are. Okay, as you practice counteracting the thought, as we were speaking of 2 Corinthians 10:5, they will decrease in frequency. She said it will become automatic. This is in Steps to Christ, where the mind will automatically turn to the Lord, like the flower turns to the sun. She says that in, I believe it's a chapter of What to Do with Doubt. Dr. Magna Parks has a warning. She dealt with a lot of sexual predators. You know, it's a mental thing. Sexual predators. Did you guys hear of Tim Bundy? You know who Tim Bundy is? Remember him? He raped a lot of women. He killed a lot of women. But I believe that man gave his heart to Jesus before he died. Did you hear his testimony?
He confessed before.
Yes. It was in the early 90s. I got chills when I heard this. This was a man who did some foul stuff. He said, do not blame my parents. They were Christians and they brought me up right. He said, now I'm not trying to blame this because I have to be responsible for my actions. He said, but it started when he was walking down an alley and saw a pornography magazine in the trash can. And it went from there. And he said, first he would be physically aggressive with women. Then he would go and find women and just rape them. And then he said that wasn't enough. He needed to kill them just to get a fix off of that. But he said it started with that magazine. When he saw that magazine, what did that affect? His mind, right? Yes, we have to be so careful with our children. But he confessed and he apologized. He was in tears. And he said, I don't mind dying because I know when I wake up I'm going to see Jesus. And I just started crying because I was a brand new Christian when I heard his testimony in the early 90s. And I was just crying and crying. And I realized there are some people struggling with these perversions. And they don't want it, but they need to know how to reverse it. And it starts in the mind. So she said, when she counsels the sexual predators, she was taught in psychology that these men cannot be changed. Is that a lie? When we become a Christian and we give our lives to the Lord, what are we become? A what? New creature. All things are passed away. Behold, how many things become new? All things become new. That's a lie of the devil that they can't change. Just like people try to say, and I get mad when I hear this. Once you're an alcoholic, you're always an alcoholic. No, you're not. If you're not drinking, you're not an alcoholic. I'm sorry. You have the potential of being one because you've been one before. But if you're not doing it, you're not one. But just like they tell the gay people, you hear it all the time. They say this on TV, and if you think about being with the same sex, you're gay. Well, what do you expect when you see it on the news, on TV every day? As a man, by beholding, we become what? So you start telling yourself, maybe I am gay. Oh, I think she's pretty. I'm a girl. She's a girl. Maybe I'm gay. No, you're not gay. The thought is not the sin. It's what you do with it. Understanding? That's why we have to be careful not to tell people you are what you think. You can become what you think, but if you surrender that thought to the Lord, you don't have to become that thing at all. Just like if I see a candy and I want to steal it as a little girl, am I a thief if I don't steal it? No, I'm not a thief. But if I keep dwelling on it, what am I eventually going to do? You're eventually going to wind up stealing. Okay. She said even with pornography, it's so dangerous because you can sit there looking at the pictures with no one seeing you, and your thoughts can just get going like this. And she said it's very dangerous. Men who have such sexual addictions never had those addictions before till they started watching pornography or reading pornography. She also said masturbation is continued by the process of thoughts. And what did we learn masturbation? What mineral of the brain does it zap?
Zinc.
Zinc. And it can cause depression, remember? Yes. So the key is the thought process has to be addressed. There are things you can do on a human level to deal with these issues. There's a lot of things we're dealing with because of the thoughts. Thoughts can contribute to physical problems, spiritual problems, mental problems. Under mental problems, you can have a lot of anxiety, correct? Science is showing that if you can help people deal better with their thoughts, you can help depression and anxiety. But we know the main key is who? Christ, right? One thing that you can do as therapy, great peace. Do depressed people need peace? Do you know this verse I'm going to quote? Great peace have they which love thy law, and nothing shall offend them. You can have them read Exodus 20. You just tell them to read it over and over and over. And as they read it, ask God, if they're Christian, to put it in their heart to like it. If they're not a Christian, just have them read it. Or they can read a psalm every day, or a proverb for the day. And have those having anxiety to change their thoughts that they won't die. Because and I've had this before, anxiety attacks. You think you're going to drop dead, and it's the scariest feeling, and you grab on somebody, I'm going to die. I've been there. After I gave birth to my 4th child, I experienced that, and it was scary. And just tell them to start saying, Lord, help me. That's what I did. Lord, help me. Tell them to start deep breathing. And here's a verse that I highly recommend for those going through anxiety, for those going through depression. You know what that says? Call upon me in the day of trouble. I will deliver thee, and thou shalt glorify me. Are they in trouble when they're having a panic attack? Absolutely. Are they in trouble when they're depressed and feel like the world it's over for them? This is a powerful promise. Just tell them to quote this over and over and over. Call upon me in the day of trouble. Just tell them to keep quoting that. Because can God lie? No. Aren't his scriptures medicine to the soul? Amen. She said at a workshop, a psychologist said that what we think is killing us. It's not what's happening in life that's killing us. It's what we think that's killing us. By the way, where do envy and jealousy begin? In the mind. Envy and jealousy made King Solomon into a madman. Remember? Yes. It started off with disobedience. And a lot of depressed people, they're depressed because they're walking around with guilt from disobedience. They just need to know there's a Savior who loves them. Thoughts and feelings make up the character. So the thoughts that we have and the feelings that we have make up our character. And by the way, did you know that our thoughts are written in the books of heaven? If we keep that in our minds, our thoughts would be different. When dealing with your spouse and other people, recognize the impact of how you think. Remember, Sister White says, thoughts and feelings are strengthened by your utterance of them. Just like sometimes you'll tell yourself, oh, I don't feel well. Oh, I don't feel, and the more you say it, the worse you feel. So when you say, oh, I don't feel well, oh, Lord, help me not to say that. Even though it may be true, I don't need to be complaining and murmuring. You get what I'm saying? Each thought you have makes grooves. Well, she said this is very elementary of this explanation. Each thought you have is almost like making grooves in your brain. And it's like footprints in the sand. The more you walk in that particular groove, the deeper it gets, right? The less you walk, and you just don't walk in that area anymore, you see tire tracks, they keep riding. What if they don't ride on there for 3 weeks? You don't see the tire tracks anymore, right? It's the same thing with the thoughts. It's the same thing with the actions. Stealing one time, it's easy to get out of. Stealing the second time, now you're making it a little easier to steal the third time. And then when you've stolen 20 times, you are a kleptomaniac. And now you're bound in chains to your sin. Who can release us from that?